This episode is powered by denmeditation.com. Though meditation is the primary focus, the bigger goal is for people to understand and love themselves, thus creating more harmony in the community at large. To find out more about Den Meditation's teacher training programs, retreats, and all things Den Meditation, go to denmeditation.com. Welcome to Den Talks podcast. We have Kyle Thomas here for our June forecast, astrological forecast, as well as we get the honor to keep him here a little longer afterwards to chat with him because I am so excited to dig into your story. But in the meantime, I'm really grateful that you're here to tell us what's in store for June. It's been interesting energetically. May seems like it's had so many things. So I'm curious to know, what do we need to know about June? Help us out.
Totally. Well, there's a lot of different new energies that we're going to be experiencing here in June 2024. And by the way, thank you so much for having me. We're going to talk about a few different things, particularly the lunations. We're going to talk about the ingress of Jupiter into Gemini. And there's a lot of very powerful energy in the Gemini zodiac sign at this point in time. So particularly, we've had Jupiter in Taurus for the last year. And so we're going to feel like there's a breath of fresh air. It's going to be new energy. It's going to feel more fast-paced, and we're going to have more of a social vibe that we've been really going to be really diving into. And not only do we have Jupiter going into Gemini, but we're going to have other planets that are going to be in Gemini as well as the new moon in Gemini, which is going to take place on June 6th. So we're going to have Mercury in there. We're going to have Jupiter in there. We're going to have the sun, the new moon, and then also Venus. So
that's a lot of Gemini.
There's so much energy around that. And the thing that we can really utilize by understanding the beauty of what Gemini brings to us is about being curious about other people and new ideas and about the world. And this is a fantastic time to learn things, communicate, and stimulate your ideas in a way that you can open up your perception. And I really love that a lot. Now, Jupiter is weakened in Gemini because it's on the polarity of Sagittarius and Gemini, and Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And so what we can see here is that even though Jupiter is going to be in a weakened position, we still can access the benefits of what is being offered to us. And like I said, we can activate the mutable air sign quality, which again is about communication, our immediate surroundings, our friends, our siblings, our neighbors, and how we are going to learn more about the world. Now, with Jupiter being weakened, though, it just means that we have to be a little bit more focused on being intentional with this energy and really trying to know what we want. Because the thing about the zodiac sign of the twins is that sometimes we can be a little bit indecisive or a little fickle or not make up our minds because we want more options. And at the end of the day, you know, I love Gemini energy. I have Gemini in my chart, and I always feel like Geminis are always about expanding and being spontaneous and opening up their minds. And I think that's something that's so beautiful that we can enjoy. How do you feel about that?
Where does Gemini fall in your chart?
So Gemini, I actually have my Mercury and my Mars there. And so that activates my third house. I'm an Aries rising. And so I actually have a lot of energy.
So your Mercury and your Mars are in Gemini. So that feels like you have Gemini on steroids.
It's a lot. Yeah. But I also have a lot of energy. So most of my chart, even though I am a Taurus sun, I'm predominantly fire and air. And that's why I work in the media. That's why I work in television and magazines. And I love to dissect ideas and learn about people and humanity and hopefully share that knowledge with other people as well. So
that's it. So we'll get into you more later. So keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So anyway, that's the big thing that I want people to, as an overall energy. But I do want to talk about, we have a very rare alignment that's taking place between Jupiter and Pluto on the 1st of June. Jupiter is trine Pluto, and this is a powerful energy. And what we can do here is that we can understand that with them working in pure alignment between Gemini and Aquarius, this is a time where we can assert ourselves to transform our lives, hopefully for the better. This is
Huh.
a very auspicious alignment that can be utilized to improve wealth, power, influence, and really transform our lives and the society around us. And I think with how the world is at this point in time, I think we really do need to focus on not only our place within it, but how we interact with other people. And I think that with that energy being activated with Pluto and Aquarius, it is about how we organize. It's about how we empower ourselves with our tribe, and then also look at the human collective in a way that hopefully is bettering the collective as well. So June 1st is a very strong energy that we can
Hmm.
really maximize no matter what your zodiac sign is. It's all about really taking action and laying seeds. And that's one of the big things that I try to teach with astrology is, of course, it's predictive, but it's productive. We want to utilize
Ooh.
it to better ourselves and better the world in which we live. So, plan some big meetings, sign some contracts, invest, just kind of put yourself out there in a way that you are taking charge of your destiny at that point in time.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about that alignment.
And that's June 1st.
That's June 1st. And the thing about really powerful astrological aspects when they are peaking from outer planets, we can feel them building for weeks before and after. And so this obviously peaks at that point in time, but even as we are launching into it, we may have noticed, important conversations or seeds or plans or initiatives in the weeks that are surrounding this that are still capitalizing on that
Hmm.
energy. So just something to think about. And again, all zodiac signs can really utilize this energy by asserting themselves and really thinking about the long term, about how they want to transform themselves, but also how they can uh, assert their influence, build their influence. And I also think that there's something to be said about wealth and abundance on a multitude of levels. It's not just about physical prosperity, it's about of the spirits, it's about of the
Hmm.
mind. And looking at about how we can really build that abundance and that wealth. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's coming. I was going to ask you. It's interesting because you were saying it's coming off of like Jupiter's in Taurus moving into Gemini, which
Yes.
it feels like. And hasn't it been kind of an abundant time? So is this kind of like the last hurrah before it really goes into Gemini? Because you were saying it's a more challenge aspect, or no? That was going to be my question for you.
Well, the thing about this is that it does take place in Gemini and Aquarius. So
Oh,
it
so it's already
already
in
has
Gemini.
moved into the zodiac sign of Gemini. And it's one of the first big peaks of this energy. But the thing that I think is really important about it is that even though Jupiter is in its detriment, we just have to be more conscious and more active in how we're engaging with that sort of energy. So, and the thing, I mean, just being straight up and honest, I mean, with
Please,
Jupiter
that's what we
having,
do.
yeah, Jupiter having been in Taurus, it's that energy has been very rocky and intense, not only because Uranus has been there and has been stirring the pot and bringing all sort of ups, downs, shifts around the collective,
I
but
have
also we've
felt
been
it.
having eclipses that have been
Right.
taking place in Taurus and in Scorpio too. So that's why it's been a lot of like whiplash around this energy, in
Yes.
particular since 2021, especially since 2021.
And
So,
so even though it's going in, like you said, to its detriment, and A, we can control anything, in some ways it might actually feel a little easier.
I mean, the
You're
thing
like,
about it
no.
is, I don't know if I would say it's going to feel easier. It's just going to feel different.
Okay.
And I think in the sense that because we are actively working with the air energy, and there's going to be such an emphasis upon this in June.
Mm.
It's more about stimulating our ideas and our connections and our social and interactions in order to, like I said, learn more about our own needs, but also how we can find a place and share with people not only in our immediate vicinity, but across the world. And Gemini also has ties to technology and social media. And so that's
Mm.
also going to be very activated at this time, and finding that community and engaging with that. Now, we also do have some other very significant energies that are going to be taking place in June as well. And, we are going to be seeing that Mars is going into Taurus on June 9th. So even though we're tying up and ending a lot of that strong, very significant Tauran energy that we've been feeling for the last year, this is going to last until July 20th.
Oh,
And the thing about Mars and Taurus is actually weakened as well, because
yes.
Mars rules real Scorpio. So we're having a lot of, I think, dichotomy about having to push uphill with some of the natural frequencies that we're experiencing. But I think one of my favorite things about astrology is that even if we are seeing challenges or friction, they are opportunities for growth, and for us to really be intentional and conscious about the lives that we're living, and also what we need at the most, through our hearts, through our souls, through our minds, and through our bodies. And Mars in Taurus it is slow, it is methodical, which is not what Mars wants to do. And so we have to be, again, very focused on how we are building our lives in a productive means, and going through, the process of creation and manifestation, in a process that's day by day, rather than rushing forward and just kind of diving into what our passions may say. What is your thoughts on that?
No, it's just hard because it's funny when you think about it, because I'm in Aries, so I get
Oh,
that
I
Mars.
love Aries energy. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, a Mars energy in Taurus. You could see how it's like, slow down, slow down. Like you
Yeah,
could just feel like that dichotomy, which is
totally.
fascinating.
Totally. But a lot of success and long-term personal and professional growth can happen from that
Hmm.
placement, because it's more focused. And
Forcing you to,
it really is. So that's why one thing that I would encourage people to do is, as you may feel frustrated because you may not be able to get exactly what you want right away, but it really has to allow you to think about how can I build my personal life, my relationships, my family, my love relationships, my friendships, my professional life, my finances, all of this abundance in our lives, but by taking one slow step at a time, and knowing that in the long run we are going to be able to hopefully achieve that end result. But again, being conscious of what that is, I think, is going to be an interesting transition that we're experiencing, because Mars, as we've said, is not particularly comfortable in this place.
it's also interesting thinking about what you're talking about, Jupiter and Gemini, this kind of flitty, fun,
Yeah,
social, energetic, and then Mars and Taurus too. It's almost like reminding you, like, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm getting the impression it's like, yes, have fun, be social, expand your thoughts,
yeah,
don't forget your foundation. Kind of like, don't forget to like take a beat and like really build it as your. You can't just be floating. You have to also like build some stuff.
yeah. I mean, I think being grounded within that energy is something that we can all really use for maximum impact. And the thing about Mars is that it's like the timekeeper of the zodiac, because it takes roughly about 2 years to go around the sun. And so whatever we're initiating when Mars is in Aries is a 2-year cycle. Whatever we're initiating with Mars in Taurus is a 2-year cycle. So
Interesting.
that's why, we can really activate on a human, on a collective level, long-term goals, long-term success, long-term prosperity, by the seeds and taking action now. Now, the things that we push forward now are going to take a long time to build, but
Hmm.
sometimes with earth energy, even though it is the slowest moving of all of the elements, we gain so much from it because we value it. And that's what comes back to that earth sort of elemental vibration. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be something that is going to be a little bit rough around the edges there, but I think that's what I would challenge people to really be diving in and thinking about. What are some of your most important goals that you want to build over the next 2 years? personally and professionally, and how can you take steps to build that each and every single day.
It's like a
And
planning phase.
yeah, and planning, but also taking action in methodical, practical means. I think that is
Mm.
something that is going to really benefit us in the long run as well. Now, we also have an influx of Cancer energy that's also going to be taking place in June too. And so we're going to have Venus entering into Cancer, which is such a sweet and lovely energy. And we're going to have Mercury also entering into Cancer on the 17th as well. And obviously, that is when we are really pushing forward to with the summer solstice on the 20th. And so we're going to be diving into Cancer season. We're going to be seeing that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to, connect with our roots, connect with our foundation on an emotional level, as we also reflect on how we've come, in the last several months, but what we still wish to build throughout the entire rest of the year. So getting in touch with that nurturing, sensitive, compassionate, romantic, emotional energy, I think is really going to also be a beautiful blend, in particular when it comes to that Mars and Taurus. That sort of kind of helps us to, like, not be as rigid, not be as stubborn, but kind of really tap into that feeling based center, and really think about what we value and how we can show that to people in a sensitive means. So I do love Cancer energy, and I think it's so sweet. So
And
yeah.
Mercury and Cancer, so that would that also be about like how we communicate to each other and how
Yes. Yeah, in particular, I actually like Venus in Cancer better than Mercury in Cancer, because the thing about Venus is that it naturally vibrates in a flow that's about sensuality and
yeah.
beauty, and it's very heart focused, and so it swims and it dives, and it really scuttles along, the coastlines of Cancer, and allows us to prioritize relationships and being nurturing and being nurtured, and I think that is such a beautiful sort of energy to express. However, Mercury is a very logical planet, and is very, it is all in the mind. And so what is going to take place here is, now it's not going to be eh, as uncomfortable as some other planetary placements we have, but it is going to encourage us to be more, our thoughts and our communications are going to be colored by emotion, because that's what happens with
Mm.
Mercury and Cancer. So we will experience that, and that's why I think, again, it's like we're going to have opportunities with all that Gemini energy to explore and pursue adventure and new horizons. But I still think that reflective nature of the Cancer energy and the Taurus energy can still help us to build, in particular, our personal lives as well. And but yeah, the last big thing that I also wanted to mention is that we do have a full moon in Capricorn, which is going to be at 1 degrees, and that takes place on the 22nd, so the 21st, 22nd of June. And we're actually going to have 2 full moons in Capricorn this summer.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so this takes place, having we have every like 2.7-ish years, we have 2 full moons in the same zodiac sign, and just sort of works out that way. And so we'll have a full moon in Capricorn at 1 degrees on the 22nd, 21st of June. And then we're also going to have a second one right about 29 degrees in Capricorn around July 21st. And so, obviously, I would encourage people to look at their natal charts and see what house is being activated, and if you have important planets, at those degrees, or square those degrees, or opposite those degrees. That is going to really help to see where you're going to see a culmination, and either a breakthrough or important news around those particular houses. But on a collective level, the thing that I love about this is that it represents that, with Capricorn being so tied to the legacy, to the structures of our lives, to our ambitions, to our careers, to our public nature, there's going to be a lot of activation around that, in particular, twice this summer as well. And so
Wow.
I think, especially with the election coming up, I think that's going to be really important energy to really think about too.
Interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
even with all the Gemini energy you're talking about collectively, I mean, we'll see. It would be really interesting if people can pull back and pull in more points of view.
Uh, well,
I mean, just allow a moment of like, can we all hold multiple points of view at the same time,
yeah.
and grow from there?
Well, and that's on one hand, that's the thing that I like about Gemini is, and this is why sometimes people can be confused by that energy, is that they sometimes like to play devil's advocate and look at all of the different perspectives, not because they're trying to be disagreeable, it's because they're actually trying to learn more and to really understand and play um, the different angles to also help them to decide what makes the most sense. But the thing about Pluto and Aquarius, though, I mean, we're going through. Pluto takes 248 years to go around the sun. Very powerful and intense, transformative collective experience we're going into for the next 20 years. The thing about Pluto, or any important outer planet, but in particularly a malefic one, it burns down or will bring things of hardship in the earlier part of that particular transit because it is exposing the
Right.
underbelly of where it is. And so it doesn't matter what, someone's political views are or parties or any of that. It's really exposing that there's corruption across the board and on a global scale. And in order for us, I think, to hopefully to elevate and to heal the world and empower the people that need to, I think we have to see that darkness in order to really find that light.
Totally. And it's interesting you said that. So it's like we're in the beginning of that phase. So we're really it's all coming up. Like it's almost like a magnifying glass. And it's like you're seeing it. And then the sun goes through it and starts burning it. And it's like a mess, right? Before it actually gets great.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about Pluto is that I always really go back to the metaphor of the phoenix. And, we have this power to be reborn and to ascend from those ashes, but it is highly destructive. And it is all about power. Pluto is all about power struggles, power transformations, personal power. But it also has ties to it's all about the dark inner world, the psychological placements, the shadow sides of things that many people, I think, try to ignore.
Mm.
One thing that I love, like healers and particularly the Den, like it's all about digging in and doing that inner work so that it doesn't destroy you. It actually empowers you.
Yep.
And allows you to hopefully make an impact on the world around you. So it's just I love being a part of working with you guys, and I just think what you do is incredible. So
Oh my God. Well,
it's
you're part of it.
you are an agent of change, my goddess.
We try. I mean, it's so funny because change, it feels like it's all happening so fast. Like
Yeah.
energetically, it feels like things are getting pulled through you so quickly. But it's like, and I know time is all amorphous, but it is like, it's like almost like I picture the astrological charts going like, brrr. It's almost like, okay, now you're going to dig into this. Now pull this. Now grow here. Now
Yeah.
everything just feels like we're being challenged faster. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It just feels that way.
Well, I also think it's because of technology.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that, some major event or crisis can happen and people are able to disseminate that information much more quickly, but it also, because of, the Pluto in particular in Aquarius, it also means that there's going to be, and Pluto in Capricorn, the ability of powerful corporations or powerful governments or powerful people being able to warp that message and control what is actually being shared. So, again, this is a collective evolution that we're going on, and we're inundated by so much stimuli and so many emotions and thoughts and images and experiences and ideas at all times that sometimes it's very overwhelming. And I just feel like, I mean, there's times even for me, and I mean, and I feel like anybody that, is intuitive or is sensitive or is mystical or spiritual or emotional, it becomes, you've got to find a way to be able to protect your energy and protect yourself too.
I
Because
totally agree.
right? Because it's
Oh
just like,
yeah.
oh my God. Sometimes I
And
just like, I get so burnt out and then I like
yes.
literally can't leave bed for like a day. Like I'll
I
just like
know.
literally be like, I'm just gonna just lie here, and but I'm like, I'm a big workaholic. So I'm always trying to do stuff. But emotionally, sometimes it's like you feel powerless because of everything that's happening sometimes.
Yeah. And also confused because I feel like there's a lot of messages and I feel like, and just exhausted. Like I feel like there's this expectation of fight all the time. And so then
Yeah.
you burn out. Like you said, you burn out and then you feel guilty for burning out. So it like just becomes this whole
I,
thing, which I find fascinating. So tell me, I'm so excited to talk about more about you because you're such like a bright light and you've had such an amazing career and you clearly what I love about you, like the astrologers I tend to gravitate to are astrologers that really do it's an embodied form and it's a very intuitive process as well as yes of course there's things you learn and things you understand from the science of it, but it's beyond that. Like you have to really have an intuitive feel for it. So how did it even start for you? Like how did you find it?
well, I mean, I've been spiritual my whole life, and I was raised Catholic. My family was very religious, but I actually started studying astrology when I was 8 years old.
Well,
So,
how did that go over in a Catholic household?
oh, trust me, it was not delightful. Like my family, as much as they were like, go and pray and go to church every week and follow these sacraments. I I would go to the library on the weekends. My dad would like go running for like 8 hours, and I'd be like, I don't really feel like doing that, but like drop me off at the library. And like I've always been just I hunger for knowledge and I hunger for insight on humanity. And so I was really drawn to ancient cultures and civilizations, and I found astrology through that because so many of them are tied to that. And I not only was so fascinated about that and how it ties us throughout time, but I also wanted to learn more about myself and then by extension other people. And so I couldn't get enough, and I just wanted to know more, and I would dive into more. And I mean, it just was this powerful passion that has been always a part of my life. And growing up, I was like always the weird astrology kid. Like I'd always ask, like, what's your sign, or like, just
Where did you grow up? Where was
I
this?
I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very eccentric and strange compared to a lot of people, but it didn't matter because I just loved it. And the thing that I loved about it too, and about my particular evolution within it, is that I'm not the kind of person that's going to read something in a book and just accept that it's true.
Mm.
The way that I go about it is that I test it. And I've always been very focused on trying to create my own hypotheses about astrology and spirituality and mysticism and everything. And so that's why it's like, after asking thousands of people like their zodiac sign, I've started to find my own particular alignments that are not always particularly talked about. So for instance,
I was
like
about to ask.
Aquarians, like I, I feel like what people talk about what Aquarius energy is not actually entirely what I believe it to be.
Please tell me what it is because I find that to be the hardest, most confusing energy to understand. So go for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I have an Aquarius moon, and
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
it's interesting because I mean, I have, my moon is square my Venus, and it's distantly square my Pluto, so that also is really activated there. But I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions that I have found in my lifetime about Aquarians, and I have a lot of them about different zodiac signs just across the board, but I think that there's a lot of people that think of Aquarius as this entirely progressive, entirely brilliant, genius, creative, artistic energy. And
Hmm.
there are people that certainly exhibit that. But the vast majority of people that I have met that are Aquarians are the exact opposite and are actually very, like, the thing is, they may be really open minded to ideas initially, but once they create their opinion, that does not change. They're fixed.
Mm.
And, my father is an Aquarius. I've had very strong relationships with Aquarians. So I can appreciate that they have that. But to say that it's like this all freedom loving age of Aquarius
I agree
sort
with
of
that.
energy is just not anything I have ever experienced in my entire life. But if you look at the books, that's what it says. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not. It is not just that. But there are pieces of that,
Right.
and it's like I feel like because I've looked at, it's like Scorpios and Geminis, and I mean all of the zodiac signs. Every zodiac sign, when you look at its purest form in a positive or negative,
Hmm.
we all have things that we can learn about that, because every person has every zodiac sign in their chart in some place, whether that's a house or they have a planet there. So we can learn so much by looking at other people and other archetypes in a way to hopefully enrich our experience of life, and then also our experiences and our relationships. So yeah, it's just that.
So, what part in your chart? Because when you were talking about from being a little kid, you had this insatiable desire for knowledge, but also like ancient civilization. What part, what is in your chart that shows you're like, yes, that makes sense?
So I have a lot of third house and ninth house energy.
Mm.
And it's, I mean, my Mars is in my second or my third house, my Mercury is there. And we really do see that there's a lot of energy that's really activating, a hunger for knowledge. But like even my Mars, my Saturn's in my ninth house of Sagittarius.
Hmm. Oh, yeah,
And
that right.
yeah, and so it's like being an eternal student. It's about diving into, and this is also why I have a career in the media, because of these particular placements that also are activated by other placements as well. But yeah, we have that. My Uranus is also in my ninth house, but my Uranus is opposite my Mars. Like it's so fascinating to like get into all of the details of everything. But again,
Yes.
like I just
So when you were a kid and you started like studying charts and you started
yeah.
understanding it, tell me now something that you were convinced looking at your chart as a kid that now that like years and years and years later, you're like, oh my God, I totally was misreading that
Well, the thing is that I always had
or
frustration
misunderstood
with.
it.
Yeah, the things that I had frustrations with is that, I didn't even have a full chart until later on. Like I literally had to like figure out how to do that, because it's when you're learning at the basics of astrology, it's like what is a Taurus, or like like what is a sun sign and things like that. And prior to the internet, there was not a lot of resources that were going to dive into all of the depth of those kinds of things.
True.
So, whereas I obviously, have books that I still have from that point in time, but like using this as an example, is that I always was so frustrated because when it comes to Taurus, no one ever talks about Taurus being a leader. They never ever do that, and I was like, what? I'm the one throwing the parties. I'm the one that's like,
Me
you
too.
know, I'm the one that's like, starting a play and directing it. I'm the one that's doing all those kinds of things, not because I think I'm better than other people, but I just didn't understand why everybody sort of like put down Taurus in that regard. But that's because I'm Aries rising and I have Jupiter conjunct my ascendant.
Ooh,
And so that's why I was like, once I found that out, I was like, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense.
you're very
And
Aries.
yeah, so, and again, like, because I've always been so tied to fire energy, I was like, I didn't know about what my other placements were, and I have so much Sagittarius and that Aries. And so, I mean, I think that was sort of the biggest eureka moment, was like, oh, I am fire. And I was right all along, like I did feel that and I knew that. Um, but again, I think one of the things that is just so fascinating to see is, now I do think that there, by looking at a natal chart, and everything has a natal chart, whether that's a relationship, a nation, a company, a person, a
Do you
pet.
do a chart every time you start a relationship?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, no, when you said that.
Have you ever like done the chart and been like, yeah, sorry, we're not.
Well, the thing about it too is that, so it's like over the last 10 years, like I predicted either by the exact day or just by the very close amount of days, the day that I was going to meet a man, or I was going to fall in love with them, or we'd fall in love, or when we break up.
Oof. I feel
And
like the breakup one would be hard.
but here's the thing that in my particular feeling of astrology and the way that I teach it is, it's not everything is predetermined. And there are a
Agreed.
lot of astrologers out there that do act like there are. Like, for instance, I had incredible mentors and wonderful psychics and astrologers that were like, Kyle, you're going to get married at 32 years old. I didn't. So they were wrong. Like,
Right.
literally. Like, and I had multiple people. And so that's why I don't make predictions like that. Like, I like to look at the transiting planets and the stars and seeing, like, because at the end of the day, astrology is the research and understanding of the flow of energy. Now,
Yeah.
through the human collective, or through the
You're
earth, or your natal chart, all of those kinds of things, we can see what's being activated. But again, what I try to focus upon is trying to empower people to be like, okay, you may have some challenges around this because it's in your natal chart, or because the planets are transiting in this particular degree, or in this placement. But I really believe and know we have free will. And so that's why, going back to the example of, like, if I can see that, like, a person and that I had been dating and we were likely to break up, I would approach it from, hopefully a place of compassion and an openness to evolve in that relationship to a different level. And I mean, more often than not, when I predicted we'd break up, we literally would break up. But no, it was crazy. It was like this last year, I was like seeing this person, and hope he's really happy and wonderful. But I literally, like, I mean, this person like love bombed me and was like, I love you, after like 2 weeks. And I was like, this is a little crazy. And I looked at our chart and I was like, we were gonna become official, because we'd been like monogamous, but we were gonna be like official. I think it was like April 11th or something. And then I looked at the chart like a couple weeks before, and I was like, something really dark is gonna happen on April 6th. I was like, this is weird. I was like, this is, but I thought, like, I thought this was like gonna work out. And then 12 hours beforehand, he sort of had a mental breakdown and we broke up.
wow.
Yeah. And that's why it's like, it blows my mind when these things are like, that's why it's like, of course, there are predictions. I always talk about, yes, astrology is predictive, but it's productive. So, you know,
I love that, predictive and productive. Also, like what you're saying, it is energy. It's
yeah,
energy, and it's energy that's coming down, but ultimately it has to, you are control of your own energy. So it's like all of a sudden you're combining things, like you're combining the energy that's coming, but also where
yeah,
you're at, where you're feeling, what are you going to do? So there's so many ways, that pitch can come in, that you can hit that ball, but
yeah,
it's like, doesn't mean it's not a hard pitch. Like, but
yeah.
why am I using baseball analogies? I'm not sure, but it's, it's like, it doesn't mean it's not a hard one, but it's the combination that has to happen. I mean, I
Yes.
always say that when I teach too, not about astrology, but whatever. I'm like, these energies are here. I'm like, but it's energy. Like, it's, so
Yeah.
use it to help you, or just be aware of it so you can navigate it. But it's
Yeah.
still you having to walk through it.
Totally. Well, and one thing that I feel like I've found is that, a lot of people, they want to know when something's going to happen or how something's going to
Mm,
happen. And on one hand, it sort of like takes away, or takes some of the pressure off that they have to create their life. And I'm not saying
right.
that people are inherently lazy, but a lot of people just want things to happen to them. They don't really want to be the master of their lives. And, certainly I have had periods in time where I've been like, oh, I want to, know these kinds of things too. But I think that inactivity and inability to take charge is what leaves some people feeling really unfulfilled. And it's always like, when is love going to be here? Well, if you're and this is when I'm working with astrology with people, it's like I literally will look at their chart and I'll be like, okay, this is when it's very likely, whether that's because of the transiting planets or progressions or whatever it is, like you have to put yourself out there. But if you're sitting at home, playing video games or watching TV and you're not actually engaging with that energy, you're going to miss some of it. And again, it's just every astrologer, every mystic has their own particular brand and way of working with it. But at the end of the day, I just want people to be inspired to create the beauty, the most majestic story that they possibly can.
So I love that. Talk about so when you were a kid, how many siblings did you have?
So I'm the oldest of three, and I love my brothers so much, and I really am so grateful for my family, and in particular my mother. She still is. She's a Gemini.
I'm a Gemini rising.
What was that?
I'm a Gemini rising.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my God, I was like laughing with friends about this past weekend. It was my birthday, and
happy birthday!
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my birthday was on the luckiest day of the year this year. So the thing that I think is so cool is that energy is programmed into my solar return for a full year. I'm like, yes,
that's amazing. Yeah, that's again, awesome.
I just feel so lucky to have that. But going back to my mom, so she's always been so supportive and so kind and compassionate and loving. And she would always have me in sports and acting classes and drawing classes and painting classes and doing speech and theater and just everything. And I feel like because I had so many of those opportunities to learn and express myself, all of it sort of is, and this is one of the most beautiful things that I love about my life, is I feel like even though, because when I moved to Los Angeles, it was to be a television writer. Like, I used to own a production company in Chicago. Like, I've had many different pivots in my career. Yet the thing that I think is the coolest at this point in time is everything led me to be here now. Like, everything has aligned in every lesson and in every sidestep. There were periods in time where I would just get so frustrated and be like, why can't I break through? And it would really get me down because I work so hard, and I love to work and I love to do what I do. But it was interesting because I looked at my chart, and it was because Uranus was transiting my first house, and I knew everything was about to change in such a bizarre and exotic way than I had ever experienced before. And that's exactly when my career in astrology blew up. It was wild.
When it transited.
Yeah. And so it was suddenly I was just posting predictions on, my blog and online. And also because I was looking to make extra money, that's how I started working with celebrities, because I had a career in Hollywood prior and I knew a bunch of people. And
so let me do this.
I just needed to make extra money. And so that's why, when it happened, it was just this do or die moment. I was like, do I completely give up everything that I've done before and leap and do this? And it was terrifying, but I'm just so grateful that I did. And I feel lucky. And
that's an interesting way of using a chart. It's like, you still had to take the leap. You still had to do it, but it was kind of like you being aware that you have this beautiful supportive energy.
Yes.
Probably was like, okay, do or die. This is the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, it's like, I try to use that in productive means, not only just for my chart, but for other people. And it's cool to see how things play out. And yeah, I just love it. But going back to as my career sort of transformed, I still work harder than ever. I actually work harder than I ever did before because I want to keep growing and I want to really build, my business and my light. And I just really just want to make a difference and do it through art and do it through, film and music and fashion. And
Do you think that has a lot to do with like what did you say? Did you have Gemini? What was your Gemini?
it's my third house.
Oh, right. You said there was a lot in there. Do you think that
Yep.
has something to do with it too? Like you're never going to be pigeonholed as one thing. It's like you're going to wear many masks in some way.
Well, Neptune is conjunct my midheaven.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I have Pluto sextile my midheaven and Neptune. So, and it's my chart is really wild. Like it's
is it?
pretty, yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's funny because it's like I've had astrologers or friends be look at it and they're like, "Damn, you really like lucked out," and I was like, "Thanks."
But what is it? Talk about that. What does that mean? Meaning lucked out, like your chart's so great, or lucked out you somehow survived something?
I mean, it's the chart has a lot of really beautiful aspects to it, but one of the things that is one of the challenges here that I've had is that my chart shows, great opportunities, excuse me, professionally and in the media and television and academics and being naturally lucky and such. However, with Venus being opposite my Pluto and then both being square my moon, it's actually created very intense karmic relationships for me my whole life. So that's why it's like, as much as like I've had so many great opportunities in my professional life, but the thing about it, my chart, is that it's not just like everything has been spilled upon me. It's like if I assert myself, particularly because of my Aries rising, then things happen. That's how I find my luck. That's how it's like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen, and it activates everything else. And I mean, it's not always easy, but it's I won't settle for less.
I love it.
Yeah, but the Pluto energy there, it's from my seventh house. So I've had these like very intense, passionate, but sometimes destructive romantic relationships. And because Pluto's in the seventh house, it's crazy. It's like it's like I've started dating someone before, and then it's like they become a completely different person. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, why? I'm like it's wild. And with Libra being my seventh house, my descendant, that's why it is, because they usually start off as like Libra energy and then it becomes the Pluto.
Oh, that's
Crazy.
interesting.
It's so crazy. It happens every single time. I've been to therapists, I've been to psychics, astrologers, I've been to, and friends even, like they'll like I'm like am I crazy? Like, what is going on? And they're like, Kyle, no, I see it. And people that have seen it for like decades now. So,
And that's interesting. So when you look at your chart, is that always just going to be your struggle, or is there anything that alludes to like, no, you will find partnership in that way?
well, the biggest thing is that my relationships and, particularly of a seventh house nature, will always transform me and them regardless.
Right. That's
So it's
beautiful.
it always happens. Business partners, romantic partners, anything of that nature. But I think finding the right kind of person, whether that be in business or love, that also wants to transform and evolve too. It's an intense placement to have all of that in my chart. But yeah.
You're like, it's an intense place.
Yeah. I mean, would I change it? I don't know, because I wouldn't be me and I wouldn't have had the life that I've had.
Yes. And I mean, don't we all, like, I'm assuming even the best charts, and it sounds like you have a very positive one, have places of intensity or places of where it's going to be a little harder. And I'm assuming that's what we're here to learn, right?
Totally. But here's the thing is, it's like, as we age and we evolve, the planets are always moving. And so you're eventually going to go into a period in time where there's going to be friction or an opposition or a challenge or an eclipse that is going to bring difficult experiences to you. But the key to it, I think, is understanding that the universe is never, ever trying to punish you or hurt you or bring darkness upon your path. It's even if you have a natal chart that can be a little bit rocky in certain areas, or even if you're going through a really rough transit, again, the universe is here to make you stronger. And I really believe that some of the people that I've seen with like the most oppositions and most crazy charts, like they become some of the most successful people in the world because they're used to living with friction. So they have to pivot and they have to work on improving their path. That's why sometimes when you see two people that have opposite zodiac signs, it's like they complete each other. You know, that polarity is very strong, and it is so crazy. It's like I'll literally will meet someone, and you know, it's like they'll be like, "Oh, I'm an Aries and I'm with a Libra," or "Oh, I'm a Taurus and I'm a Scorpio," and I'm just like, it doesn't fail. It happens so often,
Yep.
and it's not even including their rising sign in it. It can even just be the sun sign. That polarity is so strong, and that's another thing that I do also say about with astrology is that there are certain astrologers out there that are like, oh, the sun sign doesn't matter, and I'm like, it's the sun. It's the sun. What do you mean it doesn't matter? It's the sun. Now,
That
is
is
it
so
the
true.
most?
People do say that sometimes. It's only your rising sign. Sun sign means nothing.
Oh my god, that just drives me insane because the sun is the brightest force in our solar system. We wouldn't be here without the sun. The sun is so immensely powerful. That's why you can even just read a horoscope that's just the sun sign and still find relevance to it.
So this is
Because,
actually good. Talk about what your perception of what the sun sign versus the rising sign is.
well, the rising sign is the most important placement to create the chart. Like if I can actually get the time of birth, the place of birth, the date of birth, oh yes, give me all of it because then I can actually talk about the more minute details of where these placements are and in what house and what's being aspected and all of those kinds of things. But to disregard the sun and say that it is just one tiny piece, I'm like, that just boggles my mind. Like it just completely because even with the transiting planets, like you're gonna have the sun is so bright.
Right.
So that's what gives it such a large orb, you know, and obviously the more precise any astrological aspect is, the more powerful it's going to be, and like even with my Venus opposite Pluto, it's super, it's like 9 degrees, but it's still active because Pluto's so powerful. So it's that kind of thing with the sun. Is like if the sun is being activated, we know that there's going to be a tangible situation that arises. Now, again, if so if I am getting someone's chart and they're like, oh, I'm just like, I don't know, I was born in like this couple of hour period, I'm like, I don't even want it. Like, don't give me that.
Like,
If it,
tell
unless
me
it's
when.
exact, like I don't even want it in 15 minutes. I want it exact.
Interesting.
Because if it's not exact, then I'm going on and about with my expertise about stuff that's probably not even going to be entirely true. I'd rather just look at the sun and all of the placements of the rest of the planets and talk about what's being configured there, because that I know is going to be accurate, rather than being like, well, you might be a Libra rising, but I don't know, and maybe your fifth house is this placement. Like, no, I'm like, I'm a perfectionist about what I do. So if I can't give you like specific details with your exact time of birth, I'm just going to do the sun.
Talk about a little bit because were you a happy kid? It seems like you were a happy kid.
Yeah, well, I'm literally Jupiter rising. Jupiter is conjunct my ascendant, so yeah.
And you said you were like, I was quirky in this, but it seems like you didn't have any issues being who you were.
Again, this goes back to my mom, like, with the moon being tied to it, it can give insight into the maternal or nurturing parental figure. I love the fact that she's in my 11th house. That's why another thing with as I was saying before her like being my like biggest fan, she's like my best friend because my moon's in my 11th house.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
So the moon's can tell you a lot about the relationship with the mom.
yeah, or the nurturing parent. Yeah.
So when did you leave home?
I mean, I grew up obviously in the Midwest, but I sort of just knew even when I was very young that I was like, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go to a bigger city and I want more and I want culture and different kinds of people. And so I mean, I like officially left when I went to school when I was 18. But I lived there. I lived in Chicago for a while. I lived in Madison for a while, went back to Chicago, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 2015. So it's like almost 10 years. I really, I really love Los Angeles, and I miss Chicago a lot. There was so much. I certainly missed being closer to home. I felt like the dating was better there.
Really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's just something that I think is about people that are Midwestern that is just a little bit softer. So like I want to get married and I want to like maybe have kids and a backyard and like it's just like stuff like that that I think is more prominently on the agenda of men dating in the Midwest than in LA. Venus in the first house, in Taurus, I've always hungered for love and true love
You're like a fairy
and
tale.
yeah, straight up, yeah, and I remember like writing my first book when I was 13, and there was a love story and all sorts of stuff like that, and I was an actor, and so yeah, I always like hungered for that, but I didn't even really know I was gay until I fell in love with my best friend. So I'd never like kissed a guy. I never
How old
hooked
were
up.
you when you fell in love with your best friend?
I was 16.
Talk about just falling in love with your best friend. Is it something that happens like overnight? Do you all of a sudden wake up one day and you're like, why does this feel different?
It was the kind of thing where I had significantly like subdued any potential gay thought or anything of that nature for quite some time because I was just trained to believe that it was
Right.
wrong. But the thing is, this man, I don't know, we connected, and he was a Taurus too. And one thing that I've noticed is that, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I always fall in love with people that have the same birthday. Or they're like my best friend, like people that are around the same time. So like April 20th, April 21st, I've dated like 10 guys.
That's interesting.
Well, but the reason my Venus is at 1 degree of Taurus. So that
you're
means that their sun is in the same place as my Venus. So that's why when you are actually like, if you do notice that you're like, or like I've dated or I've had best friends that were like always September 21st or September 22nd, and it's their sun is trine my sun. So there's that, and same thing with like Scorpios. It's similar dates, it's like best friends, romantic options, business associates. It's really wild.
Okay, so this is a guy you guys became best friends. Were you best friends for a long time, or like
I was a sophomore, he was a freshman, and yeah, we just sort of we just clicked so magically together. Like I certainly feel like he's one of my soulmates. And
yeah, you can tell your voice changes when you speak about him. It's sweet.
Yeah, he's straight, but I actually wrote a big column about this on Cosmopolitan magazine, and I told him, I was like, I love you more than anything I've ever felt before. And he was like, I feel this exact same way to you. And so we acknowledged that we were having gay feelings for each other. But the thing that was crazy is that people were starting to figure out, and then they forced he and I not to be together. So, yeah.
And then you never did act on any of it. It was just like this acknowledgement of like deep love.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. But that's, again, it goes back to the fact that I'm a romantic. But like, that's not really motivating me. Like, it motivates me more to be like, I sometimes I think about it, like if this was in like the 50s or something, if I was alive then, like I could have a perfectly healthy, sexual, romantic, intimate relationship with a woman. Because I do believe that like at the root of who I am, I'm bisexual, but I just fall in love with men harder. Like that's where it is. And it's not even just like the physical thing. It's like, of course that that's a component, but
right. But it's a deeper,
it's just like it's like for the right man, my heart radiates like the sun.
You are a romantic. I want to read this book you wrote when you were, what was it, 13, 14? Was it like What was it? Like a romance novel?
No, I mean it was like it was sort of like sci-fi fantasy, but I'm actually readapting it. So this book that I when I first wrote it when I was 13, I've like consistently readapted it. Like I mean probably like 100 times.
Oh my God, good for
And
you.
yeah, just like because it's like the story that like lives inside of me. And when I moved to LA, we adapted it as a television series. I was working with some different producers, and then I just because I've been going through a pretty significant, wonderful period with Jupiter just left my first house, just like I literally a couple weeks ago. If you have a very powerful planet that's transiting your first house or your sun sign, although first house is more significant about the chapter of the 12 years. I mean, as long as if it's a Jupiter transit, you lay the seeds of that, and what you build will manifest in that 12-year period. So, for instance, when I started doing astrology more significantly was in 2011, 2012, and like straight up doing readings for people. And that was also when I got funding to build my production company. We built a bunch of projects, and that launched me to national press for the first time. I actually left a relationship because I wanted to pursue focusing on me. I also got my baby cat, who was like a little soulmate to me. So it was all of these big important things. And because all of that happened when Jupiter was in my first house, everything built for 12 years because
Mm.
of the cycle. And so I was aware that that was going to happen again. And that's why I made important decisions and plans and things happen then. And one of them was that I was going to resurrect the story, and I was going to rewrite it for like the 100th time on a more mature level. And I've been loving doing that. And that's why it's like I don't even have to publish it right now. I'm just writing this for me. I just want to
What
like feel it and enjoy it,
will
and
you
I'm
be?
assuming it probably will be published in the next 12 years, but
I
we'll
know that's
see.
why I'm reticent to ask you what it's about, but I'm so curious because clearly there's something about this story for you that is super important. The fact that it hasn't gone away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've taken pieces from history and taken pieces from different religions and spiritualities, and but I just like love the characters. They feel like
Your friends.
friends to me. It's been really, really lovely to do that. Because the thing about my life and my career is that I'm always creating content. I'm always creating shows. I'm creating poetry. I'm writing horoscopes. I'm writing, creating just all sorts of different stuff. And I love to do it. And I love to do what I do. And that's why I'm really excited about like there's a big next chapter that's hopefully going to be happening with the advancement and evolution of my business. But I don't really have a lot of time or projects that I do that aren't related exactly to my career. So that's why I've been trying to also find creativity in things that it's sort of like keeps that fire going. So like I have like paintings all over my house, and
Oh
that's
wow.
one, and so it's like, yeah, like all
Oh,
sorts
that's
of stuff that
amazing.
made, but so I did that for a while, but now it's like I want to write again.
Well, we're
So
gonna have to touch base again and find out.
yeah.
It's like to be continued.
Yeah, well, you know what we should do next time? We should also like I could do some of your chart. We could talk about.
I would love it. Let's set it up.
Yeah,
It's probably going to
yeah.
be
Have me
hilarious.
back in a couple months, and we'll go back. We'll go through your chart, and we can talk about either different placements or some important transits. And yeah, I mean, we can. I would love to. I'm
Let's
happy.
do it. I have yeah, I'll be curious. I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love it because it's the thing that I like think is so cool about every reading I do or any show I'm on or anything is that I feel like I learn just as you do as well, because I can talk about like, oh, I know this is a placement, or I know this, and I can be like, oh, I had my friend had this, or I had this, or a celebrity I had worked on that, or all sorts of just different stuff. But it's just so crazy, like how astrology just like opens your mind, and you're like, and the patterns are there throughout
That's what's
time. That's
fascinating.
yeah, and but there's always like nuances to it, and Yeah, so I love it.
I'd love that. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And this was so lovely. And thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
taking the
you for
time.
having me.
And thank you for the amazing forecast. June's going to be interesting, and we'll have to we'll share little notes to see how it went.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. I adore you.
Thank you so much.
If there's anything you need from me, just let me know.
Amazing. And we'll set up the next one.
Okay,
Bye,
perfect.
Kyle.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye.